What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolve video. Alright soldiers, so in this video we're going to be talking about the Havencraft Showdown deck. Now I personally do believe that this deck is 100% worth just from the neutrals alone. But of course, before we dive into the deck, let us talk about our new mechanic with the Super Evolution Point. Alright, so getting into our new mechanic here, so we have the Super Evolution Point card. So the Super Evolution Point card can be used on turn 7 or later going first, and if you're going second, you can use it on turn 6 or later. So essentially it just works as you use the regular Evolve points, and if you're very new to Shadowverse Evolve, I do highly suggest you know how to use the regular Evolve, and then Super Evolution Point cards will definitely just come in handy because you'll be using them on turn 7 or later. But the thing about the Super Evolution Point card here is it will be triggering on these new cards that we do have that do have Super Evolve on them. And if cards don't have Super Evolve, they do just get a stat buff by just 1. And just a note on top of with those followers that do have Super Evolve and on Evolve effects on them, you actually do trigger them both, and you can choose when you want to do each effect. But yeah, I hope this explanation was simple enough that you were able to understand. Now back to whatever starter deck we were talking about. Alright, so getting back into the deck here though, so we have Havencraft, and this is the form of Amulet Haven. So you're going to be playing amulets, and then when you do remove them off of the field, they're going to have last words effects. So they're kind of like followers, but essentially they're amulets, so they can't be targeted unless there's a card that specifically says target every card on the field. Alright, but part of me will say that there are pros and cons in picking up this deck. So there are some really good pros. You get a really solid Havencraft deck that you can play. I will say on the con side of that, there aren't that many cards to help you remove, so you're definitely going to outsource for some more copies of cards. But on another pro side, we do get the Zelgania the World and Oh Great World playset that we're going to need when playing this deck. And that card was pretty good a couple sets ago. I know people are still like kind of rotating away from that card, but I think that's still a very good control piece card. Well, yeah, so enough of that about talking about the Showdown deck. Let us actually look at it. So this is the entirety of the list of the cards that you are going to be getting. So the one thing I am going to really disagree with is only having the 1 copy of Sekhmet. I think this card is just absolutely needed in the deck, or at least like people are rotating away from Prism Priestess. We haven't ran Prism Priestess in like forever, so including her was pretty interesting, but I think cutting Prism Priestess and getting like a playset of Sekhmet would have just made the deck like super playable. Not saying the deck isn't playable, you can still get a good form of Havencraft from picking up the Showdown deck, but I do think I do differ with some of these choices for the cards in here. Alright, so now that we looked at the Showdown version of it, let us start looking at the cards that are going to make this deck even better. Alright, so we have the Cornelian Hind. So this card was absolutely promoted very well with the Amulet Haven deck. Being able to play a card and then looking at the top 5 cards, you may reveal any amulet card and add it to your hand, and you put the rest of the bottom of your deck. And then when you do evolve this card, you can either choose to go into the light or dark side, which you can have as many copies in your evolve deck, and you can actually access both of these at any point in time. But of course, on both forms of these evolve, on evolve we'll be bearing an amulet, which will allow us to do the last words on certain amulets, but we'll be able to on the light side give our leader +4 defense. But if we go into the dark kind, we're going to be selecting enemy leader or enemy follow in the field and dealing it 4 damage. So definitely very good in terms of combo when you're going to combo with your amulet last words. Alright, and then here are some pickup cards that you need to get as well that are really strengthen up your deck as well. Alright, so we have Eidolon of Madness. This is a 2-cost card. If you have at least 3 amulets on your field, you can evolve this follower for 0 this turn. So this will not eat up the, oh, you can evolve multiple times in 1 turn. You're just actually able to evolve for free, which will allow us to go into the evolve form, which we can select enemy follow on the field and just banish it, which is really, really good because we can stop enemy followers from having last words. And then we also have the fact that on this last words, we can deal 3 damage to the enemy leader, which is going to be very good because if you pair it up with the Dark Hind, we can actually do a total of 7 damage to the enemy leader. Alright, then next up we have Whitefang Temple. So at the start of your end phase, you can place a prayer counter on this card. You can give your leader +1 defense. So at the start of your main phase though, if this card has at least 3 prayer counters on it, you can bury it and then search your deck for a Faith Follower that costs 4 or less and summon it and then shuffle your deck. Well, conveniently, if any of you soldiers were paying attention, Hind is a Faith Follower that is 4 or less, so you can go ahead and get the Hind on your main phase so you didn't have to use any play points. So you can get a Hind out on the field that'll allow us to bury an amulet if we do go ahead and evolve it this turn. Alright, then lastly we have Forgotten Sanctuary. So I know not many people are playing this card, but this is still a 3-cost card that you can play, and I know we're going to be rotating towards the future of different cards, but Forgotten Sanctuary is still good, being able to summon a Holy Tiger token, which is a 4/4 with Rush, and then of course if you do remove it off of any of your other effects, this gives your leader +2 defense. All right, so here are some other options, and one of the main options is my favorite, and I'm glad it's going to be coming for set 16. And that is Enstatued Seraph. So it's a 6-cost amulet, so this can't be destroyed by ability, so this amulet hits the field and it's going to stay. There's nothing that's touching this card. And at the start of your end phase, you can put a prayer counter on this card, and then if there are at least 4 prayer counters, you can put this card into its owner cemetery, give your leader plus 10 defense, and then search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your EX area. They cost 0 to play. Now that's absolutely amazing. Now there's a trick here. There's a trick, of course. It's very hard to establish in Enstatued Seraph, but as of set 16, we will be getting a new form of a way to play Enstatued Seraph for a lot cheaper, so I do highly suggest you pick up this card to explore it next set. Alright, and next up we have Pure Metamorphosis. So this kind of does fix the problem with you not being able to proc as many cards to get rid of amulets. You're able to select a card in field and destroy it and then summon a Holy Falcon. So if you are struggling with amulets on your board, which is something that is going to happen with this deck, and you don't really have a Dark Offering or anything to remove that card, this is just a very good substitute to add in more removal there, so you can get a Holy Falcon token, threaten some Storm, and then also getting the last words for whatever amulet you are getting rid of. Alright, and next up we have Heavenly Knight. So it's a 5-cost 3/7, it's Storm and Ward, a pretty good budget version to any of the other cards that you may be looking towards the late game. So when it comes into play, if there are at least 2 amulets on your field, you give this Varl +2 attack, and then give your little +2 defense. So he turns into a 5/7 with Storm and Ward, so you can swing for 5, have a big ward on field. Unfortunately, you can still be targeted by abilities, but being able to heal and then also threatening some good storm damage is very important. Alright, and lastly we have this spell card that got limited to 1, but it's just good in every control deck. We have Planetary Fracture. 8-cost spell card. We banish each card on the field and in the EX area where each player buries the top 10 cards of their deck. So for any newer players, this got limited to 1 because once you get into 8 play points, you can just keep playing this and then burying the top card of your opponent's deck, and it definitely gets ludicrous. So for those decks that do draw a lot and have another control scheme as well, and they draw, being able to just Planetary Fracture their entire board and their EX area, reset the board, and then potentially milling them out for the rest of their deck. Alright, so here is an example staple build that I think is very good. Now you can play around with a lot of ratios in Amulet Haven. You can definitely evolve it into a different version of Amulet Haven, but we're definitely going to keep running Elixiel. But I went with the frame of Planetary Fracture, being able to reset everything. Now I know it's going to be pretty bad to banish your entire amulet line, but when you're kind of stuck in a God-sworn Elixiel turn where you just keep healing and dealing damage, you're not really getting anywhere, being able to just mill your opponent out is just a good end game. But yeah, I think this is a solid build. Definitely in terms of price, you only spend around $100, and then that's not even counting for all the core pieces that you already do get. Just do be on the watch out for the Eidolon of Madness, and then the other cards like Priscillian Hind. Just those cards that you're definitely going to need to really beef up the removal in your deck. But of course, I'm going to be putting a link to the deck in the description below, so feel free to check that out. And alrighty soldiers, that was pretty much it for the Showdown deck for Havencraft. I actually am very excited to at least pick up a copy of this box, even though I have a majority of these cards as I am a control player. But being able to have access to the great world is just going to be very good for the collection. And alrighty soldiers, we finished all the Showdown decks. Be on the lookout on the channel for the tier list video that I will be making of the Showdown decks and their power comparison and whatnot, and me just going over a breakdown of my personal opinions outside of the intros that I have done for these videos. So do be on the lookout for that on the channel. But alright soldiers, make sure you are safe in whatever you do tonight and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Yeah. TRINN just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do, just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do, just to get you away. You pull me too close, now we hesitate. Every single move you make, it makes me feel